Well, hello, everyone. I'm glad you could join me again today. Got some information I want to share with you here. It's been an important week here in Tennessee, and as the legislative season is starting to come to a close in Nashville, we have our legislators trying to sneak through and impose their tyranny on us before they get out for the season. So anyway, before I get started here, as I always do, I say, if you follow me on Facebook, you can follow me on Facebook at Midnight Rider. If you do, like and share the video, follow the page. You can follow me on YouTube at Charles Cook 52 and subscribe and hit the bell so you get the notifications when I upload another video. And you can follow me on Rumble at Charles Cook 52, and if you do, give me a rumble on there. So let's get into this, and there's a pretty controversial bill that's going on in Nashville. It is House Bill 1201 and Senate Bill 1005, and the odd thing is the bill sponsors are Cameron Sexton, the House Speaker of the House, and the Lieutenant Governor, Randy McNally, or as I'm going to start referring to them as, for Cameron Sexton, Little Nancy, and Randy McNally, Little Chuck, because they're no different than Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They just have an R beside their name instead of a D. So Little Nancy and Little Chuck is trying to muddy the water of a bill and sneak in some information, some tyranny in it. Kind of like when they have a spending bill at the federal level, and then they sneak in some funding for Planned Parenthood or illegal immigration or something like that to fund stuff. It's kind of what they're kind of doing with this bill. They want to make it sound like they're adding transparency to it. Well, this was a caption bill, and they kind of started putting the amendments on at the last minute and everything, kind of sneaking it in. So it has nothing to do with transparency at all. Instead of putting it out there at the beginning of the session and let people look at it, this is what they did with the bill, and trying to sneak it in at the last minute before they go home to finish the season and get ready for run for re-election. So they can go ahead and start running for re-election and accomplish the things that they want to do to cover up for what they did in the legislative season. So you may say, well, Charlie, what are you talking about? Okay. What politicians love to do is they love to go do what they want to do while they're at the legislature, and they'll do, anything that they want to do. But when it gets to, once they're out of the session and then the election comes up, they don't want you to think about what they did then. They want to separate the two. And they want you to vote for them just because they're a Republican or they're your buddy or whatever. They don't want you to say, well, you did this in the legislative season, so now I'm going to hold you accountable for it in the election season. So that's what they're doing here. So why now? Well, let's look at what's happened over the last year. And they've been wanting to do this for a long time, but let's look back over the last year. And I'll plug a couple other places, a couple other groups here. If you really want to stay informed on some stuff that's going on, follow Brandon Lewis at the Tennessee Conservative, and Gary Humble with Tennessee Stands. They provide a lot of good information going on here in Nashville at the legislature. So follow those guys. But So we have this bill, and what it wants to do is anybody that spends any 501c4, nonprofit organization who spends more than $5,000 between 60 days before the election of a primary or a general election. If they spend more than $5,000, then they want to know how much they spent, where they spent the money, and it eventually end up being that they'll find out who their donors are, because they don't want these people out giving information what they've done during the legislative season. So that's what this bill is all about. And they've got maybe some good things in there, holding some politicians accountable for misdealings. That's okay. But they're also going after the 501c4s and the nonprofit organizations. And most of those are grassroots organizations that are just small local groups. So as I was getting back to why is this important, why now? Well, let's go back to what's happened in the last year. Well, we had, with all this COVID mandates and stuff going around the state, from employers to local governments and stuff, what they were doing, none of the Republicans wanted to stand up and help the people. But all of a sudden, it was so important that they call a special session to do everything they wanted to do to help the Ford Motor Company get established down at Memphis and get all this funding available for them to recruit Ford Motor Company coming into the state of Tennessee and that development down there. So they called a special session for that to try to get this stuff done. Well, wait a minute. The voters, the people said, well, you can't do a special session to help us out to get some of these mandates and stuff off of us, but you can do this for corporate welfare, basically. And so they started pushing back on their representatives and state senators. And so they finally went into special session, and they supposedly done some work that ended up bowing to these corporate organizations that push back on them as well. But they made it look like they'd done some things to take care of the citizens of the state of Tennessee with some of these mandates. But they didn't go far enough, and they didn't do some of the things that the citizens wanted done. So a lot of people are upset. They finally started waking up, seeing what was going on with the state, how their representatives and stuff are not representing what they want done, but they'll do what the corporations want done. And so people are upset. So this whole bill, that amendment put in there for the 501c4s, that is all to ultimately end up shutting down or seeing who's funding these local groups. So, well, why is that important? You say, well, I know a guy out of East Tennessee that they put a lot of pressure on because he spoke out about some things. And even I done a video with John Harrison. He played with Tennessee Firearms Association. He played part of that on his radio program, that interview, but he didn't play portions of it because we were kind of negative on the governor. And he knew that if he played that part, he would maybe get some pushback. And so that tells you the power that these people have and the scare tactics that they use. So if a 501c4 spends $7,000 on going after just putting out a voting record of a representative or a state senator, it's not that they're saying vote for or vote against, they're just putting out his voting record, then it makes it public. And what they'll do is they'll go after the people they done business with, say for a mailer or something, or when they find out who their donors are, they'll publicly try to embarrass those people to try to dry up who they're either doing business with or who they get their funding with. It's not about taking care of the voters, making sure the voters know who's doing these things, because when you put out a mailer or something, you have to put on the bottom who it's paid for. And so that's no big deal. What they want to do is find out who you're doing business with and who your donors are. Bottom line, that's all that matters. But that's still not even the point of it. When I say they want to separate what goes on at the legislative season from the election season, why does that matter? Well, I want to share something with you here. And, we hear Tennessee is red to the roots, Republican to the roots. And let me get something across to you. Republican and conservative doesn't mean liberty and freedom. And so, let's just make sure we understand that. So I want to share my screen here with you, and I want to show you this. This is, and I'm hoping you can see this. So this is from the American Conservative Union Foundation. And this is the state of Tennessee's, all of their either representatives or state senators rating as far as conservative rating. And in the state of Tennessee, the most conservative person in the whole state legislature is Justin Lafferty. And he is a 94% conservative voting record. Now, he's out of Knox County down there, and he's out of District 89. And let me tell you something. When you're a conservative and you are strong conservative, these liberal establishment places will go after you. I can promise you this, and I know from people on the ground in Knox County that know what's going on down there. They openly recruited people to try to run someone to primary Justin Lafferty down there. So all I'm gonna say about that, but that just needs to show you what they're doing. This is 2021 voting record for the legislative season of 2021. So, 2022 is not done yet, so it's not going to be shown yet. The second one is Bruce Griffey. And so if you have a letter grade of A, B, C, or D, the only A-rated conservative that you have in the state legislature is Justin Lafferty. And we want to talk about we're red to the roots, we're conservative to the roots. No, we have one A-rated conservative in the state of Tennessee. And then, a high B is Bruce Griffey. Well, guess what? He's not running for re-election. And then you have, maybe Brian Terry there. But as you scroll down, you may have a couple of high Bs. But this is why they're trying to do what they're doing in Nashville, is to try to keep people from informing how their representatives are in Nashville and how they really vote when they go back home for re-election, because they don't want those small groups, grassroots organizations, putting this information out. So, if you get a chance, go on here and look at this stuff and look at some of these Republicans and see where their ratings are, what their percentage of conservative votes are. I mean, here's guys, 78%. It's if we think we're conservative, here's Becky Duncan Massey, 79%. And the thing is, we get down in here to the Democrats, is it's bipartisan, because guess what the Democrats don't want? They don't want challengers in their districts using their voting record against them as well. So I wanted to show this to you and let you understand, I mean, where we're at in this state. And I don't know if you seen it in your community as well as, you know, what I see in my community, in my county, is where I'm from, in Hamilton County, you can't get elected as a Democrat. So you have a lot of Democrats, people who have liberal viewpoints, that are running as Republicans simply because they can't get elected, you know, as a Democrat. And that's the way it is across the state, is unless you live in Knoxville or Chattanooga or Nashville or one of the larger cities, you know, Memphis, you can't get elected as a Democrat. So these people run as Republicans so they can get elected. And then when they get to Nashville, they vote like that. And that's what they did in Knoxville. You know, they run Eddie Manus, Democrat supporter, as a Republican 2 years ago, and he got elected as a Republican. Democrats crossed party lines, come over and elected him, and he went to Nashville, and boy, what an embarrassment he has been to Knox County. He's been such an embarrassment that all the people that endorsed him and supported him have backed away from him, and he's decided not to run for re-election now. So he spent 2 years down there. We could have had a good conservative that actually that could have went to the legislature and represented that district in Knox County, but that's not what they've done. And I can tell you, I promise you, the establishment in Knox County pushed him as their candidate. That's why people bent over backwards to support the guy. And you know, when I say the establishment, I'm talking about people that were with the National Republican Party, even that point pushed it. So that's my point of this video, is I wanted to inform you of why this bill is so important, that Cameron Sexton, Little Nancy, and Randy McNally, Little Chuck, both are the sponsors of this bill. Now, see how important this point was Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the House, was the House sponsor, and Randy McNally, the Lieutenant Governor, was the Senate sponsor. So that gives signals in the House and the Senate that you better support this bill. This is what the leadership in both houses want. You support this bill, or else you're going to pay for it. We're going to come after you. And there will be very few that will actually vote no on this bill in either house, because they fear the leadership in this. And I watched the committee hearing in the local government House. I watched the video from that the other day from the House of Representatives, and they just fell all over Cameron Sexton, little Nancy, when maybe that's his new pronoun, when he came in to speak on the bill and stuff, that they had somebody else present because he wasn't presenting the bill. I don't get that there, but yeah, they just fell all over themselves. They wanted to make sure that, oh, don't think we're against your bill. You might be mean to us, you know. And if you think things are dirty in Washington, it's happening in Nashville too. You just got to wake up and see it. And so that's what this bill is about. It's silencing the people who are getting fed up with what's going on, and people are waking up to see that their Republican leadership in Nashville and these Republicans that they're voting for and sending to Nashville are no more better than Democrats when it comes to supporting your rights and your liberties. And people are seeing that, and they're getting upset. So they want to silence as much dissent as possible. And it's not the dissent while they're in Nashville doing their thing. It's the dissent. Make no mistake, they don't care how mad you get or what your voice is when they're in session. Their only concern is how mad you are when they're running for re-election, because a mad voter at the polls is their worst nightmare. And they don't want that. So they don't want people reminding you of what they did 60 days before their election. That's what this is all about. And as I said, people think what Nancy and Chuck does in Washington is bad. That little Nancy and little Chuck in Nashville is doing the same thing, but they try to hide it and say, oh, we're just taking care of the voters. The voters want to know. Well, the voters, if you wanted to inform the voters, you would have put this out at the beginning of the session and let everybody know and let it be debated instead of trying to cram it through the last couple of weeks of the sessions and going home and then running for re-election. If they wanted to take care of the voters and take care of the people of Tennessee, they would have stepped up, called a special session during this whole COVID tyranny and mandates and took care of the people. But no, they only did it after they called a special session for Ford and to do their corporate welfare for them. When they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar and the voters said, hey, if you can do it for them, you can do it for us. Then that's when they done the special session. So keep an eye out and as I said, see what's going on. And as I told you before, follow the Tennessee Conservative, Brandon Lewis there, and Gary Humble at Tennessee Stands. They're in Nashville a lot. They know what's going on, and they're keeping up with it. They're putting this information out. And I can tell you, little Nancy and little Chuck in Nashville. I think Cameron Sexton, little Nancy's from Crossville, and little Chuck, Randy McNally, is from Oak Ridge. So, you know, these guys are in Nashville. They're informing you of what these people are doing down there and what they're pushing and stuff. So follow them and stay up to date with what's going on. And so anyway, so I'll end this video, and I thank you for joining me. I hope I didn't go too long, and I hope it makes sense. But stay informed and don't fall for this stuff, because it's all about keeping you uninformed. That's all they want. When it comes to for re-election, they want to make sure that you are uninformed and you'll just run out and vote for that R again, because they're the ones that's got the most money in their re-election campaign, and they can send you all these mailers in the mail and make it look like they're doing so good when really they're not. Go on the website that I shared with you and see what their real conservative rating is. And with that, I'll tell you good day. Hope you have a blessed Easter weekend, and remember, he is risen. He is our Lord and Savior, and one day none of this is going to matter, because if we're with him, it's not going to matter. God bless you, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.